I never thought my life would unravel over something as simple as a work retreat. Living in Montreux had always been a dream come true for me. The picturesque town nestled against Lake Geneva, with its stunning mountain backdrop, had been our home for nearly 7 years. Clara and I had built what I thought was an unshakable life here. That particular Thursday evening in September, I remember walking through our front door feeling like I was carrying the weight of the world. The Rousseau account had been a nightmare, endless meetings, unreasonable demands, and a client who seemed determined to make my life miserable. I dropped my briefcase by the door and loosened my tie, following the smell of Clara's cooking to the kitchen. "You look terrible," she said, stirring something that smelled divine. Her honesty was one of the things I'd always loved about her. "I feel terrible," I admitted, kissing her cheek before collapsing into a chair at our kitchen table. "This account is killing me. I can't remember the last time I slept properly." Clara placed a glass of wine in front of me and squeezed my shoulder. "Maybe you need a break, Kaio. You've been working non-stop for months." The thought had been lurking in the back of my mind for weeks, but hearing Clara say it out loud somehow made it real. "I've been thinking about taking some time off," I said cautiously. "Maybe go up to the mountains for a few days. Just me, no phone, no emails. Nothing but peace and quiet." I watched her face carefully, looking for signs of disapproval or hurt, but found none. Clara had always been supportive of my career, even when it demanded more of me than was fair. "I think that's exactly what you need," she said, turning back to the stove. "When would you go?" "Next week, maybe. I could wrap up the most urgent things and delegate the rest to Sophie." Sophie had been my assistant for just over a year. Young, ambitious, and frighteningly efficient, she'd quickly become indispensable. "Perfect. I'll help you pack," Clara said, and just like that, the decision was made. Over dinner, we talked about my plans. A small chalet in the Alps that a colleague had offered, hiking trails I wanted to explore, books I'd been meaning to read. Clara's enthusiasm mirrored my own, though I caught occasional flickers of something else in her eyes, worry, perhaps, or a hint of loneliness at the thought of a week without me. "You'll be fine without me for a few days?" I asked, reaching across the table for her hand. "Of course," she smiled, squeezing my fingers. "I've got plenty to keep me busy. Besides, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?" That night, as we lay in bed, I felt a strange mixture of excitement and guilt. Excitement for the solitude that awaited me, guilt for leaving Clara behind. But the exhaustion that had seeped into my bones over the past months outweighed everything else. I needed this retreat, not just for my sake, but for ours. A burnt-out husband was no husband at all. The week flew by in a flurry of preparations. I worked late every night, clearing my desk as much as possible. Sophie was a godsend, taking over clients and rescheduling meetings without complaint. "Don't worry about anything," she assured me on Friday afternoon. "I'll handle everything." The morning of my departure arrived with perfect weather, clear skies promising a beautiful drive ahead. Clara helped me load the car, double-checking that I had everything I needed. "Remember, the whole point is to disconnect," she said, zipping up my jacket as if I were a child heading off to school. "So please, try to actually disconnect. No sneaky email checking." "I promise," I laughed, pulling her into an embrace. 1 week of being completely unreachable. "Well, not completely," she murmured against my chest. "You'll call me, right?" "Every evening," I promised, kissing the top of her head. As I drove away, watching Clara grow smaller in my rearview mirror, I felt that first intoxicating rush of freedom. The road wound higher into the mountains, each turn revealing more breathtaking scenery. By mid-afternoon, I arrived at the chalet, a charming wooden structure perched on the mountainside with views that made my heart skip. That first evening, I sat on the balcony with a glass of local wine, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. For the first time in months, my mind was quiet. No emails pinging, no phone calls to return, no Sophie appearing at my office door with yet another crisis to manage. Just me and the mountains and blessed silence. I called Clara as promised, describing the chalet and the view. She sounded happy for me, her voice warm and familiar. We talked about nothing important, what she'd had for dinner, a movie she was planning to watch, but the conversation left me feeling grounded and connected despite the distance. That night, I slept better than I had in years, dreamless and deep. I had no idea that while I slumbered peacefully in my mountain retreat, the seeds of chaos were already being sown back home. No idea that Sophie, my trusted assistant, was about to shatter the tranquility I'd fought so hard to find. My first full day in the mountains was everything I'd hoped for. I woke with the sunrise, made strong coffee, and spent hours hiking along trails that wound through pine forests and alpine meadows. The physical exertion cleared my head in a way that no amount of meditation ever could. By evening, pleasantly exhausted, I called Clara as promised. "You sound different already," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I feel different," I replied, watching the last light fade from the peaks. "How was your day?" "Nothing special. Lunch with Anna. Some shopping." A brief pause. "Have you checked your phone at all?" "Just for this call." "Why?" "No reason," she said quickly. "Remember your promise, no work." I laughed. Trust me, work is the last thing on my mind. But as we chatted, I detected something off in Clara's tone, a slight tension, perhaps, or a hesitation before certain responses. I put it down to my imagination, or maybe the spotty reception in the mountains. When we hung up, though, a vague uneasiness lingered. The second day brought more of the same blissful solitude. I read for hours on the balcony, hiked to a nearby lake, and even tried my hand at sketching the landscape. That evening, Clara didn't pick up when I called. Slightly concerned, I sent a text, and she replied almost immediately, "Sorry, dinner with friends. We'll call tomorrow. Love you." Simple enough, but the uneasiness returned. Clara rarely went out for dinner without mentioning it beforehand. It wasn't like her to miss our call without warning. Stop it, I told myself. She has her own life. This break is for both of us. By the third day, I'd convinced myself that everything was fine. The morning was spent hiking to a spectacular viewpoint where the entire valley spread beneath me like a living map. I took photos, planning to show Clara when I returned home. On my way back to the chalet, I stopped at a small village for supplies and found myself checking my phone, not for work emails, but for messages from Clara. Nothing. That evening, she answered my call on the first ring. "Kaio," she said, and something in the way she spoke my name sent a chill through me. "How's your retreat?" "It's great," I said cautiously. "Clara, is everything okay?" A long pause. "I'm not sure. There's something we need to talk about, but not over the phone." My mind raced through possibilities: a family emergency, health news, trouble with the house. "You're scaring me." "What's going on?" "It's about Sophie," she said finally. "Sophie?" "My assistant Sophie." The context made no sense. "What about her?" Another pause. "Have you seen the photos she's been posting?" "From Paris?" "Paris. The business trip we'd taken 3 weeks ago. Standard client meetings, nothing remarkable except perhaps the view from the restaurant where we'd had dinner the final night." "I haven't seen anything." "Clara, please tell me what's happening." I heard her take a deep breath. "She's been posting photos of you two together. In Paris. Making it look like you're more than colleagues." The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's ridiculous. We went to Paris for the DuPont account. It was purely professional. The pictures tell a different story, Kaio. You two looking very cozy at some restaurant. Walking along the Seine. Her wearing your jacket. My memory flashed to a chilly evening when Sophie had forgotten her coat, and I'd lent her my jacket for the walk back to the hotel. A completely innocent gesture that now sounded damning. Clara, there's nothing going on between Sophie and me. Nothing. Whatever those photos suggest, it's not reality. I want to believe you, she said, her voice small and distant. But she's been telling people at your office that you two have a special relationship. Anna heard it from Jean-Pierre's wife. My stomach twisted into knots. Jean-Pierre was a senior partner, someone whose opinion mattered enormously to my career. If Sophie was spreading rumors that had reached his wife. I'll fix this, I promised, already calculating how quickly I could get back to Montreux. I'll come home tomorrow. No, Clara said firmly. Finish your retreat. I need some time to think anyway, and you need your rest. We'll talk when you get back as planned. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence, watching night close in around the chalet. The peace I'd found in the mountains evaporated, replaced by a churning anxiety. I thought about calling Sophie directly but decided against it. Whatever game she was playing, confronting her without seeing the photos first seemed unwise. Instead, I broke my promise to Clara and checked Instagram. Sophie's account was private, but she'd tagged me in several posts. The images were exactly as Clara had described, Sophie and me at dinner, champagne glasses raised, walking along the Seine at dusk, Sophie wearing my jacket, her head tilted toward me in a pose that suggested intimacy. Worse were the captions, perfect Paris nights with my favorite person. When work trips turn magical. Some connections are undeniable. Cold anger washed over me. The photos themselves were innocent enough, moments captured during a business trip, but the framing, the captions, the selective editing told a story that was pure fiction. A fiction designed, it seemed, to undermine my marriage and boost Sophie's standing. I thought back over our working relationship, searching for signs I might have missed. Had I been too friendly? Too casual? Had I crossed professional boundaries without realizing it? No. Our relationship had always been strictly professional. I'd never given her any reason to think otherwise. Which meant this was calculated. Deliberate. A betrayal not just of my trust but of the professional opportunity I'd given her. My finger hovered over the phone. One call to HR would start proceedings that would likely end her career, at least at our firm. But something held me back. I needed to understand her motivation first. And more importantly, I needed to repair whatever damage she'd done to Clara's trust in me. That night, sleep eluded me. I paced the chalet, rehearsing conversations with Sophie, with Clara, with Jean-Pierre. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I wouldn't cut my retreat short as my first instinct had urged. Instead, I'd use the remaining days to plan my approach carefully. Clara was right, confronting the situation required clear thinking, not reactive anger. As the sun rose over the mountains, I made coffee and sat on the balcony. The view that had brought me such peace now seemed remote, disconnected from the turmoil in my mind. For the first time since arriving, I opened my laptop and began to write, not work emails, but a detailed account of my relationship with Sophie, the Paris trip, and every interaction I could remember that might have been misinterpreted. I needed Clara to know the truth. And I needed to understand how I'd failed to see the threat that had been sitting at the desk right outside my office door. The next 2 days passed in a strange limbo. On the surface, I maintained the pretense of a peaceful retreat, hiking during the day, reading in the evenings, but my mind never stopped working on the problem waiting for me back home. Clara and I spoke briefly each night, our conversations superficially normal but underscored by tension neither of us was ready to address. On the 5th night, Clara called earlier than usual. I saw Sophie today, she said without preamble. I nearly dropped the phone. What? Where? I invited her for coffee. The thought of Clara and Sophie sitting across from each other, discussing me, sent a wave of nausea through my body. Why would you do that? Because I needed to see her face when I asked about those photos. I needed to know if she was sleeping with my husband. Her bluntness shocked me into silence. After a moment, I managed to ask, and what did she say? She denied it, of course. Said the photos were just friendly moments she thought were cute. That I was overreacting. Clara's voice was steady, but I could hear the hurt beneath her composure. She seemed genuinely surprised that I was upset. Did you believe her? A long pause. I'm not sure what I believe anymore, Kaio. That admission cut deeper than any accusation could have. Clara and I had built our relationship on trust, complete, unquestioning trust. Now, I could hear that foundation cracking. Clara, I swear to you, nothing happened between Sophie and me. Nothing. Then why would she do this? Why create this narrative? It was the question I'd been wrestling with myself. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe she has feelings I never noticed. Maybe she thought it would benefit her professionally somehow. By making people think she's sleeping with her boss. Clara's skepticism was palpable. It happens. Office politics can be complicated. Even as I said it, I knew how weak it sounded. What else did she say? She apologized for any misunderstanding. Said she'd take the posts down. Then she asked if I was going to report her to HR. And are you? I told her that was up to you. Clara sighed heavily. Kaio, I need to know, is there anything else I should know? Any other moments or interactions that might suddenly appear on social media? No, I said firmly. Nothing. The Paris trip was completely professional. We had separate rooms. We discussed the DuPont account over dinner, and then I walked her back to the hotel because it was late. That's all. I hope you're telling me everything, Clara said after a moment. Because I can't handle any more surprises. After we hung up, I sat staring at the dark window, seeing only my reflection against the night. The chalet that had felt so liberating now seemed confining, keeping me from where I needed to be, home, with Clara, fixing this mess. I checked Instagram again. As promised, Sophie had removed the Paris photos. Her latest post showed her at a cafe with friends, all smiles, as if nothing had happened. The casual normalcy of it infuriated me. Without thinking it through, I did what I'd been avoiding, I called Sophie directly. She answered on the third ring. Kaio? Is everything okay? No, Sophie, everything is not okay, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. My wife just told me about your coffee meeting. And about the photos you've been posting. Oh. A small, deflated sound. I took those down. I didn't realize they would upset Clara. They were just nice moments from the trip. Don't, I cut her off. Don't pretend you didn't know exactly what you were doing with those captions and the way you framed those photos. A pause. I'm sorry if they were misinterpreted, they weren't misinterpreted. They were deliberately misleading. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. I need to understand why, Sophie. Why would you risk your job, your reputation, my marriage, for what exactly? The silence stretched so long I thought she might have hung up. Finally, in a small voice, I admire you so much, Kaio. Working with you, learning from you, it's been the highlight of my career. And in Paris, it felt like we connected on a different level. I thought maybe you felt it too. The delusion in her words stunned me. Sophie, I'm your boss. I'm married. Whatever connection you thought you felt was completely one-sided and inappropriate. I know that now, she said quickly. Clara made that very clear. I never meant to cause problems between you two. I just I got carried away with a fantasy, I guess. Her admission should have softened my anger, but instead, it hardened my resolve. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a fundamental breach of professional boundaries. When I returned to the office, I said, my voice cold, "We need to have a serious discussion about your future with the firm. Until then, I think it's best if you take some leave." "Are you firing me?" Her voice rose in panic. "I'm giving you a chance to consider whether you can continue working with me in a purely professional capacity. If not, we'll need to discuss alternatives." After ending the call, I felt hollow rather than vindicated. Sophie's apparent crush didn't excuse her behavior, but it did make the situation more complicated than pure malice would have been. And it left me questioning my own actions. Had I somehow, unintentionally, encouraged her feelings? Sleep eluded me that night. I replayed every interaction with Sophie, searching for moments I might have mishandled. By morning, I'd made a decision. I was cutting my retreat short. The mountains had lost their appeal, and the problems waiting at home wouldn't solve themselves. I packed quickly, left a note for the caretaker, and was on the road by mid-morning. I didn't call Clara to tell her I was coming home early, partly because I wanted to surprise her, partly because I feared she might ask me to stay away longer. The drive back to Montreux gave me time to think, about Sophie, about Clara, about the fragility of trust. By the time I pulled into our driveway, late afternoon sun gilding the lake in the distance, I'd rehearsed a dozen versions of the conversation to come. Our house looked exactly as I'd left it, but somehow felt different, as if the foundation had shifted slightly while I was away. I unlocked the door, calling Clara's name as I stepped inside. She appeared in the hallway, surprise evident on her face. "You're early." "I couldn't stay away," I said simply, dropping my bags. "We need to fix this, Clara. No more phone calls, no more distance." She nodded slowly, her expression guarded. "Did you talk to Sophie?" "Last night. She's taking some leave while we figure things out." Clara gestured toward the living room. "Then I think it's time we had that talk." As I followed her, I realized the coming conversation would determine not just Sophie's future, but ours as well. The truth would need to be enough, because it was all I had to offer. Clara sat on the edge of our sofa, hands clasped tightly in her lap. I chose the armchair across from her, maintaining a distance that felt both necessary and painful. The late afternoon light streamed through our windows, casting long shadows across the living room floor. Everything looked familiar yet somehow altered, as if I were seeing our home through a slightly warped lens. "I wasn't sure you'd come back early," Clara said, her voice quiet but steady. "Part of me thought you might extend your stay." "I couldn't focus anymore," I admitted. "Not with things the way they are between us." Clara nodded slowly. "So, tell me everything. From the beginning. About Sophie." I took a deep breath and started with the day Sophie had been assigned as my assistant. I described our working relationship: professional, efficient, occasionally friendly but never crossing lines. I detailed the Paris trip day by day, meeting by meeting, emphasizing the absolute absence of anything inappropriate. The night I lent her my jacket, it was cold, she'd forgotten hers, and we were walking back to the hotel after a late dinner with clients. That's all. I would have done the same for any colleague. Male or female? Clara interjected. The question caught me off guard. Yes, of course. She raised an eyebrow but didn't pursue it. Go on. I continued, explaining how I'd had no idea about Sophie's social media posts until Clara told me. How shocked and angry I'd been. How I'd confronted Sophie directly. What exactly did she say? Clara asked. When you called her. I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. She said she admired me. That she thought we had some kind of special connection in Paris. Did you? No, I said firmly. Absolutely not. Whatever she felt was entirely one-sided. Clara was silent for a long moment, studying my face as if searching for something hidden there. Finally, she sighed. I believe you, Kaio. I don't think you had an affair with Sophie. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. But I do think you were blind to something that should have been obvious, she continued. This girl has been infatuated with you for months. Anna noticed it. Jean-Pierre's wife noticed it. How could you not see it? The accusation stung, partly because it contained a kernel of truth. Had there been signs I'd missed? Moments where Sophie's behavior crossed lines I should have addressed? I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe I was too focused on work. Maybe I didn't want to see it because it would have made things awkward. Or maybe you enjoyed the attention, Clara suggested, her tone sharp. Maybe it was flattering to have your young, pretty assistant hanging on your every word. That's not fair, I protested, feeling heat rise to my face. I never encouraged her. Never. Not intentionally, perhaps, Clara said. But there are other ways to encourage someone, Kaio. Small things. A compliment here, a private joke there. Allowing certain boundaries to blur. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words died in my throat. Had I been complicit without realizing it? Had my actions, however unconscious, contributed to Sophie's delusion? I need to know what happens next, Clara said, interrupting my thoughts. With Sophie. I told her to take some leave. When I get back to the office, we'll have a more formal discussion about her future with the firm. Are you firing her? I ran a hand through my hair, frustrated. I don't know. Part of me thinks I should. What she did was unprofessional and potentially damaging to my career, not to mention our marriage. But she's also young, and talented, and this is her first serious job. Firing her could ruin her career before it really starts. Clara stood abruptly, walking to the window. Her back to me, she said, so you're protecting her. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. She turned to face me. After what she did, you're still considering her feelings, her career prospects. I'm considering what's fair, I argued. What's proportionate? What's fair? Clara's voice rose slightly. Was it fair for me to spend 3 days wondering if my husband was having an affair? Was it fair for our friends to see those photos and think our marriage was in trouble? Was it fair for you to miss the signs that your assistant was crossing professional boundaries? Her words hit me like physical blows. No, I admitted. None of that was fair. Then why are you being so careful with her feelings? It was a question I hadn't fully examined myself. Why was I hesitating to fire Sophie outright? Was it compassion? A sense of responsibility? Or something more complicated? I don't know, I said again, hating how inadequate it sounded. Maybe because I feel partially responsible. For her feelings or for her actions. For not setting clearer boundaries, I said. For not seeing what was happening before it got to this point. Clara returned to the sofa, sitting closer to me this time. Kaio, I'm not saying you had an affair. I'm saying you were naive. You let a situation develop that should never have been allowed to start. Her assessment was fair, if painful. I had been naive, blinded perhaps by ego or simply by the demanding pace of work that left little room for noticing interpersonal dynamics. You're right, I acknowledged. I should have seen it. Should have stopped it. So what now? Clara asked, her voice softer. How do we move forward? It was the question I'd been asking myself for days. How did we repair the damage to our trust? How did I handle Sophie professionally? How did we prevent something like this from happening again? First, I'm going to be completely transparent with HR about what happened, I said decisively. I'll request that Sophie be reassigned to another department if she stays with the firm. Clara nodded, approval flickering in her eyes. And for us, I continued, reaching for her hand, I think we need to rebuild some trust. I've been taking you for granted, Clara. Working too much, not paying enough attention to what matters. She didn't pull away, but her fingers remained stiff in mine. This isn't just about you working too much, Kaio. It's about honesty. About seeing things clearly. I know, I said, squeezing her hand gently. And I promise you, I'm seeing things very clearly now. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. We'll see. We talked until the light faded, painful truths and cautious hopes laid bare between us. By the time we ordered takeout from our favorite Italian place, some of the tension had eased. We weren't back to normal, whatever normal meant now, but we were talking, really talking, for the first time in months. That night, Clara didn't suggest I sleep in the guest room as I'd half expected. Instead, we lay side by side in our bed, not touching but not entirely separate either. In the darkness, I could feel the weight of everything still unsaid, everything still to be resolved. Kaio, Clara whispered just as I was drifting off, promise me one thing. Anything, I murmured. No more assistants under 30. Despite everything, I couldn't help but laugh, the sound breaking some final barrier between us. Clara's hand found mine beneath the covers, a small gesture of reconnection that meant more than any words could express. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, the conversation with HR, facing my colleagues' gossip, rebuilding professional boundaries. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of our bedroom, I allowed myself to hope that the worst was behind us. I had no idea how wrong I was. Morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Clara and I moved around each other in familiar patterns, coffee brewing, toast popping, brief touches as we navigated the kitchen. If not for the lingering tension beneath our casual conversation, it might have been any ordinary Monday. What time are you going in? Clara asked, buttering her toast with precise movements. 9. I have a meeting with Martine in HR first thing. I'd emailed our HR director the previous evening, requesting an urgent appointment without providing details. Clara nodded thoughtfully. Are you nervous? A little, I admitted. It's not exactly a conversation I ever expected to have. Just stick to the facts, she advised. And remember, you didn't do anything wrong. Her words were supportive, but I caught the subtle emphasis on you, a reminder that while I might be innocent of an affair, I wasn't entirely blameless in this situation. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, hoping to avoid the curious stares I was certain awaited me. The building was quiet, most offices still dark. I made it to my own without encountering anyone, closing the door with a sense of relief that proved short-lived. My computer pinged with an email notification almost immediately. Sophie. Subject, my resignation. The subject line alone sent a surge of conflicting emotions through me, relief, guilt, concern. I opened it with a sense of dread. Dear Kaio, it began formally, a stark contrast to her usually casual tone. Please accept this letter as formal notification of my resignation from the position of executive assistant, effective immediately. I understand this leaves you without support, but under the circumstances, I believe it's best for everyone if I make a clean break. I want to apologize for my inappropriate behavior regarding our Paris trip. My actions were unprofessional and showed poor judgment. I never intended to cause problems in your marriage or workplace, but I recognize that intention doesn't mitigate impact. I've already cleared my desk and returned my access card to security. I won't be coming back to the office. Thank you for the opportunities you've given me over the past year. I've learned a great deal working with you, lessons I'll carry forward into my next position. Sincerely, Sophie Berger. I read the email twice, noting its careful phrasing and lack of emotional language. It felt rehearsed, possibly even reviewed by a lawyer. The sudden formality from someone who had been sending playful, suggestive social media posts just days ago was jarring. Before I could fully process my reaction, my phone rang. Martine from HR, Kyle, I've just received a rather concerning email from Sophie Berger, she said without preamble. Are you available to meet now rather than at 9? 20 minutes later, I sat across from Martine in her sterile office, recounting the entire situation as objectively as possible. She listened without interruption, her expression neutral save for the occasional tightening around her eyes. This is unfortunate, she said when I finished. But not unprecedented. Office infatuations happen more often than people realize. So you believe me? That nothing inappropriate happened between us? Martine tapped her pen against her notepad. I have no reason not to believe you, Kyle. Your record with the firm is exemplary. The careful phrasing wasn't lost on me. But Sophie's resignation email contains some concerning allegations I need to address with you. My stomach dropped. What allegations? She apologized in the email she sent me. She sent a different version to me, Martine said, sliding a printed email across her desk. I scanned it quickly, my blood running cold as I absorbed its contents. Sophie claimed I had made suggestive comments to her in Paris. That I had pressured her to join me for private dinners. That I had implied her career advancement might depend on her receptiveness to my attention. This is fiction, I said, pushing the paper away. Complete fiction. I suspected as much, Martine said, surprising me. The tone doesn't match what I know of you, and the timing, immediately after your wife confronted her, seems convenient. Then why show me this? Because while I believe you, I need to understand why Sophie would escalate to this level. False allegations of this nature are serious, potentially career-ending. People don't typically make them without significant motivation. I thought about Sophie's apparent crush, her social media posts, Clara's confrontation. None seemed sufficient to explain this vindictive turn. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe she's more unstable than I realized. Maybe she's trying to protect herself by attacking first. Martine nodded slowly. There's something else. Sophie has apparently been telling colleagues that you two had an understanding. That you were planning to leave your wife. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. That's ridiculous. I've never even hinted at anything like that. I believe you, Martine repeated. But these rumors have been circulating for weeks, Kyle. Not just since Paris. Weeks. The word echoed in my mind. Sophie had been constructing this narrative long before our business trip, building a fiction I'd been completely oblivious to. I need to know who she's been talking to, I said, feeling suddenly exposed. How far this has spread. I've already begun discreet inquiries, Martine assured me. So far, it seems limited to a small circle in the administrative staff. I don't believe any clients or senior partners have heard these rumors. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. What happens now? I asked. Now we contain this, Martine said firmly. Sophie has resigned, which simplifies things considerably. We'll accept her resignation without further comment and institute a strict policy against discussing internal matters. If anyone asks, you're simply hiring a new assistant. And the allegations? Without evidence or a formal complaint, which she hasn't filed, there's no basis for an investigation. I'll keep her email in a confidential file in case she escalates, but otherwise, we consider this matter closed. The professional handling of the situation should have reassured me, but as I left Martine's office, a sense of unease persisted. Sophie's lies weren't just malicious, they were calculated, deliberate attempts to damage me professionally if she couldn't have me personally. I returned to my office, closed the door, and called Clara. She deserved to know about this latest development. She did what? Clara's voice rose in disbelief when I explained Sophie's email to HR, made false allegations, I repeated. Fortunately, Martine doesn't believe them. This is insane, Kyle. This girl is unhinged. I'm beginning to think so, I agreed. Martine says she's been telling people for weeks that I was planning to leave you for her. A long silence followed. Weeks? Before Paris. Apparently. And you never noticed anything strange in her behavior during that time? The question carried a hint of the doubt we'd supposedly moved past the night before. No, Clara. I swear. She was just my assistant, doing her job well. At least, that's all I saw. Another pause. I believe you. It's just hard to imagine being so blind to something happening right in front of you. Her words stung, but I couldn't argue with them. I had been blind, willfully or not. I should have paid more attention, I conceded. Been more aware of office dynamics. Yes, you should have, Clara agreed, then softened her tone. But Sophie is clearly disturbed. This isn't normal behavior, even for someone with an unrequited crush. After we hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen, unable to focus on the work that awaited me. Sophie's escalation from seemingly innocent social media posts to malicious allegations painted a picture of someone far more troubled than I'd realized. Had there been warning signs I'd missed? Red flags I'd dismissed? A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Jean-Pierre, one of the senior partners, leaned in with an expression of concern. Got a minute? He asked, closing the door behind him without waiting for my response. Of course, I said, gesturing to the chair opposite my desk. Jean-Pierre sat heavily, his usually confident demeanor subdued. I heard about Sophie's resignation. And the rumors. My heart sank. So much for containing the situation. It's not what people are saying, Jean-Pierre. Nothing happened between us. He held up a hand. I know that, Kyle. I never believed it for a second. Relief washed over me. Thank you. That means a lot. But there's something you should know, he continued, leaning forward. Something that might explain Sophie's behavior. I waited, a sense of foreboding settling over me. Sophie applied for the junior account manager position last month. The one that went to Thomas. I frowned, trying to process this new information. I didn't know she'd applied. Because her application was rejected before it reached the interview stage. She lacked the qualifications. And you think this is about professional disappointment? Revenge for not getting promoted? Jean-Pierre's expression grew grave. Not exactly. She told the hiring committee that you had promised to recommend her. That you were grooming her for the position. The implications hit me all at once. Sophie hadn't just been creating a fictional romance, she'd been leveraging my name, my authority, to advance her career. When that failed, when the reality of her inadequate qualifications caught up with her, she'd had to explain the discrepancy between her claims and my lack of advocacy. And what better explanation than a personal falling out? A lover's quarrel turned professional. I never promised her anything, I said, my voice strained. I had no idea she even wanted to move into account management. I figured as much, Jean-Pierre nodded. But I thought you should know the full picture. This goes beyond a simple infatuation, Kyle. This was calculated. As Jean-Pierre left, I sat in stunned silence, the pieces of Sophie's deception falling into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't just about a crush or a misinterpreted business trip. This was about ambition, manipulation, and a disturbing willingness to use others as stepping stones. I picked up my phone to call Clara again, then hesitated. The revelation cast our entire situation in a new light, one that made my obliviousness even more difficult to explain or excuse. How had I missed such blatant manipulation happening right under my nose? Before I could decide whether to make the call, my email pinged again. Another message from Sophie, this one sent to my personal account rather than my work email. The subject line made my blood run cold, for Clara's eyes only. With trembling fingers, I opened it, knowing that whatever came next would change everything. The email contained a single sentence: "Ask your husband about the hotel bar in Paris, after the client dinner." My mind raced back to that evening. The DuPont meeting had gone well, ending with drinks and handshakes around 10 p.m. The clients had retired to their hotel while Sophie and I returned to ours, different hotels, on different streets, a deliberate choice I'd made when booking the trip. I'd walked Sophie to her hotel first, lent her my jacket against the cool evening air, and then continued to my own hotel a few blocks away. There, exhausted but pleased with the day's progress, I'd stopped at the bar for a nightcap. A simple scotch, enjoyed alone while I reviewed notes from the meeting. Nothing remarkable, nothing worth mentioning, certainly nothing that would warrant Sophie's ominous email. Unless a memory surfaced, hazy at first, then sharpening into focus. A woman at the bar, a few seats away. Dark hair, elegant in a navy dress. She'd smiled when our eyes met, raised her glass in silent acknowledgement. We'd exchanged a few words, pleasantries about Paris, the weather, typical traveler's small talk. I'd finished my drink, wished her good night, and gone up to my room. Alone. It had been such a minor interaction I hadn't thought of it again until now. Was that what Sophie was referring to? But how would she know about a brief conversation in a hotel she wasn't staying at? My phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. "Clara. Did you just get an email from Sophie?" she asked without preamble, her voice tight. My stomach dropped. "She copied you?" "No, she sent it directly to me. Ask your husband about the hotel bar in Paris." "What does that mean, Kaio?" I closed my eyes, trying to gather my thoughts. "It's nothing, Clara. I had a drink at my hotel bar after the client dinner. Alone. That's it." Then why would she specifically mention it? I hesitated, unsure whether mentioning the woman at the bar would help or hurt my case. I spoke briefly with another guest. Just casual conversation, nothing more. Another woman. The sharpness in Clara's voice cut through the phone line. Yes, but it was literally a 2-minute exchange about the weather. "Clara, I swear to you, nothing happened." Then why is Sophie using it as some kind of gotcha moment? How would she even know about it if she wasn't there? It was the same question I'd been asking myself. "I don't know," I admitted. "She wasn't staying at my hotel." A thought struck me suddenly. Unless she followed me. After I walked her to her hotel, maybe she followed me to mine. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy with implication. "That's disturbing," Clara finally said. "It's the only explanation that makes sense," I said, my mind racing. "She's been creating this fictional relationship for weeks, apparently. Following me to my hotel, watching me have an innocent conversation at the bar, and then twisting it into something sinister. It fits the pattern. This is beyond a crush or office politics, Kaio. This is stalking." The word hung between us, undeniable in its accuracy. Sophie's behavior, the social media posts, the false allegations, and now this, painted a picture of obsession that sent a chill down my spine. "I need to talk to Martine again," I said. "And possibly the police." "The police? Isn't that overreacting?" "I don't think so, not anymore. She's escalating, Clara. First social media, then false allegations at work, now she's directly contacting you with vague accusations designed to create suspicion. What do you think she'll do next?" It was a question I'd been avoiding, but now it demanded an answer. "I don't know. That's what worries me." After hanging up with Clara, I immediately called Martine and explained Sophie's latest contact. Her reaction was swift and decisive. "This crosses a line," she said firmly. "I'm contacting our legal team immediately. In the meantime, document everything, every email, every message." Don't delete anything. Should I contact the police? Let's start with a cease and desist letter from our attorneys, Martine advised. Make it clear that any further contact will have legal consequences. Sometimes that's enough to snap someone back to reality. I hoped she was right, but a nagging doubt persisted. Sophie's behavior wasn't showing any signs of rational calculation at this point, or rather, the rationality was bent in service of something deeply disturbed. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings with HR, legal advisors, and concerned looks from colleagues who'd clearly heard fragments of the situation. By the time I left the office, I felt drained, as if the energy had been siphoned from my body one difficult conversation at a time. Clara was waiting when I arrived home, her face etched with concern. Any more communications from her? No, I said, dropping my briefcase and loosening my tie. The firm's lawyers are sending her a cease and desist letter tomorrow morning. Hopefully, that will be the end of it. Clara nodded, but I could see she shared my doubts. I picked up dinner from that Thai place you like, she said, gesturing toward the kitchen. I thought maybe we could use some comfort food. The gesture, small but thoughtful, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. After everything that had happened, Clara was still here, still caring for me despite the chaos my professional life had brought into our marriage. Thank you, I said, pulling her into an embrace. For believing me. For standing by me through this mess. She returned the hug, her body warm against mine. We're partners, Kaio. In the good and the bad. Over dinner, we tried to focus on ordinary topics, a documentary Clara wanted to watch, plans for the weekend, the neighbor's new puppy that wouldn't stop barking. But Sophie's shadow hung over every attempt at normalcy. Do you think she'll stop? Clara asked eventually, pushing her half-eaten curry aside. After the legal letter, I mean. I considered the question seriously. I hope so. Most people back down when faced with actual consequences. But Sophie isn't most people, is she? No, I admitted. She's not. Clara reached across the table for my hand. I'm scared, Kaio. Not just of what she might do, but of what this means for us. For our future. I squeezed her fingers gently. What do you mean? We've always talked about starting a family someday. Having children. Her eyes met mine, filled with worry. But if there's someone out there obsessed with you, someone willing to go to these lengths to disrupt our lives, how can we bring a child into that uncertainty? The question hit me like a physical blow. Clara and I had been discussing children more seriously in recent months, even starting to plan for the possibility. The idea that Sophie's actions could derail that future filled me with a rage I hadn't allowed myself to feel until now. We can't let her take that from us, I said firmly. I won't let her. It might not be up to us, Clara said softly. If she's as unstable as she seems, who knows what she'll do next? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. You shouldn't have involved lawyers, Kaio. Now I have no choice but to share everything with Clara. My blood ran cold. I showed the message to Clara, watching her face pale as she read it. Everything? What everything could there possibly be to share? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Nothing, I said firmly. There is nothing to share because nothing happened. She's bluffing, trying to scare us. Clara didn't look convinced. What if she fabricates evidence? Photoshops images or something? It was a possibility I hadn't considered, and the thought sent a fresh wave of anxiety through me. Then we'll deal with it, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The truth is on our side, Clara. Is that enough? In a world of deepfakes and social media where perception is reality. I had no answer for her, no reassurance that felt genuine enough to offer. Instead, I forwarded the text to Martine and our legal team, evidence of Sophie's continued harassment despite explicit warnings to cease contact. That night, neither of us slept well. Clara tossed and turned beside me, while I stared at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Sophie over the past year, searching for the moment where I should have recognized the danger. Morning came with no answers, only the grim determination to face whatever came next. I called into work, requesting another day to deal with the personal crisis. My boss, now fully briefed on the situation, agreed without hesitation. Clara and I were having coffee when the doorbell rang. We exchanged a nervous glance. We weren't expecting anyone, and in our current state of anxiety, any unexpected visitor felt like a potential threat. I checked the security camera on my phone. A courier stood on our doorstep, holding a padded envelope. "It's just a delivery," I said, relief evident in my voice. I signed for the package, noting it was addressed to both Clara and me. No return address. "Should we open it?" Clara asked, eyeing the envelope with suspicion. It could be evidence for the restraining order, I reasoned, though without much conviction. Carefully, I opened the envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note, the truth he's been hiding. Clara's eyes met mine, fear and uncertainty reflected in their depths. "We have to look," she said quietly. I nodded, feeling as though we were standing on the edge of a precipice. Whatever was on that drive, fabricated or real, had the power to change our lives. I inserted it into my laptop, Clara beside me, both of us holding our breath as the files loaded. And there they were, photos, dozens of them. Sophie and me in Paris, but not the innocent shots she'd posted on Instagram. These were different, edited to look intimate. Me with my arm around her waist. The two of us apparently kissing in a darkened restaurant corner. Sophie entering what looked like my hotel room. "These are fake," I said immediately, my voice strained with anger and disbelief. "Clara, you have to know these are fake." Clara's face had gone completely white, her eyes fixed on the screen. "I know," she whispered. "I know they are." But knowing and feeling were different things, and I could see the images taking their toll on her, fake or not. The visual impact of seeing your husband in intimate poses with another woman, even knowing they were fabricated, was devastating. "We need to call the police," Clara said suddenly, her voice finding strength. "This is beyond harassment, Kaio. This is criminal." She was right. Whatever line Sophie had been approaching, she had now crossed it definitively. This wasn't the action of someone who could be reasoned with or deterred by legal warnings. This was calculated psychological warfare, designed to destroy our marriage and my reputation. As I reached for my phone to make the call, I felt a strange sense of calm settling over me. The fear and anxiety of the past week giving way to resolution. Sophie had shown her hand, played her ultimate card, and in doing so, she'd made our path forward clear. "We're going to fight this," I told Clara, squeezing her hand. "Together. All the way." She nodded, her eyes meeting mine with newfound determination. "All the way," she echoed. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with police reports, legal proceedings, and the painful work of repairing the trust that Sophie had tried so hard to break. But in that moment, facing the worst of Sophie's attacks together, I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. She had tried to tear us apart, to destroy what Clara and I had built over years of love and commitment. But in exposing the depths of her deception, Sophie had inadvertently revealed something else: the strength of our bond, tested by fire but still unbroken. Whatever came next, Clara and I would face it as we always had, together, partners in both the calm and the storm.